Welcome to Krav Life, everybody. My name is Paul Simos, and today on Train to Fight, I'm interviewing Mr. Randy King. Randy is the founder and program designer of 80/20 conflict management strategies. He's taught conflict management in 8 countries, and he tours regularly with Rory Miller. So you're going to want to hang around. It's going to be a great interview. Now, here at Krav Life, we are all about community. Right? Networking, learning from each other. And that's why we created our own Krav Life community network. It's a place where Kravists like you and me can network and discuss everything to do with Krav Maga and Krav Maga related stuff in a safe place. Plus, I drop profiles, articles, training, and a lot more stuff in there for you to learn, all for free. You just go to mykravlife.com and sign up for the free community and start networking with Kravists from all over the world. And while you're there, be sure to check out our Krav Maga directory and find a place to train near you. So, without further delay, here is Mr. King. So, welcome, Mr. Randy King. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on the show. So, not everybody in our audience is going to know who you are. Can you give us like a real quick rundown on who you are, what you do, sort of thing?
My name is Randy King. I am an education-based self-defense instructor based out of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, but I travel all over the world teaching self-defense, and I focus most of my attention on the soft skills of the self-defense world, so boundary setting, communication, threat assessment, that kind of stuff, and then we do a little bit of the physical stuff as well. My company is called 80/20 Conflict Management Strategies, 80% education, 20% physical skills.
Ah, neat.
Yeah.
Like when there's like a meaning behind the names. So how did you get started in this? Like how did Randy King get into, the martial arts and self-protection and all that stuff? Like where does all this stem from?
Great question. So it stems from, like I said at the beginning before the show, I'm like the standard build for your martial arts instructor. So I started off in Taekwondo when I was 10 because I was an exceptionally heavy child. I was like 305 pounds at 13, 14. Like I was like, wow. People say I was obese. And so of course people picked on me, and legitimately, I wish I had a cooler origin story, but I was watching the Power Rangers. I saw that the Power Rangers didn't get picked on, so I wanted to be like a Power Ranger. So I went to the closest gym I could, which, if you know anything about Edmonton, is Taekwondo. We have more Taekwondo schools per capita than anywhere else in the country. Taekwondo is huge and strong here. So I went to Taekwondo and I started learning Taekwondo, going through it, got my black belt, and thought that the skills I learned in Taekwondo were going to transfer to real world encounters because that's what I was sold, right? So I'm not super old, but I'm definitely pre-internet. So I'm from the day, and Paul, maybe you are too, where you had to kind of believe your instructor. You just couldn't, like, if they said they fought in the woods for a tournament, you're like, cool, I can't fact check that. Yeah. So I got the black belt, had a bunch of trophies, and then thought, I should become a bouncer. I didn't want to go to school. I have really bad ADD. Sitting still for too long is not good for Randy. And so I applied at a bar here in Edmonton during the oil boom, which paints a lot of the stories that I tell because it was pretty wild during that time. And I got a job at a bar where a guy had been stabbed a couple of times. So I thought there was a job opening and I applied. Started working there. Shockingly got stabbed there. And a lot of my, like, I think phase one Randy, like the physical skills side, like the importance of like reality-based training, the kind of Krav Maga mentality, that really came on the sidewalk in front of that bar, right? Realizing like big kicks aren't going to work in Canada. Like people joke about Canadians and saying we're far north. Like most of us actually live further south than Minneapolis, but I live in Edmonton. I'm actually in northern, like mid to North Canada. Like it's cold. Yeah. So like doing a spinning hook kick on ice is not a great idea. So the first 3 months of my bouncing career was me just pretty much getting beaten up and not quitting, right? Like Dorman would leave me alone because like, oh, Karate Kid can't fight. And I couldn't. I couldn't fight in the parameters of a street fight. I remember learning about, like, for example, things people don't talk about, BO. Like, people stink when you fight them. In a tournament, they're usually clean, but like just getting that smell. So that got me looking at more, at the time, realistic arts. So UFC was just becoming kind of big. Canada's about 2-3 years culturally behind the US. So UFC tapes were just like videotapes were just coming up here. So I was like, I want to do that. That seems more realistic. So I started doing submission wrestling and Thai boxing, which were awesome. And they worked really, really well. They were much more functional because the lens was a little better until I got stabbed. So I've been stabbed a couple of times, but the major one that I talk about is a 165-pound crackhead almost killed me. Just almost stabbed me on a Wednesday night. So we won't get totally into it because it's like the intro part of this the podcast. But that obviously reshuffled the deck in my head of what is important, what isn't important, because I was bigger, stronger at this time. Because I'm 6'1", I'm not a small person, but 172 centimeters for our Canadian people. And I am, at that time, I was 230 pounds. I'm 260 right now. I'm a big fella. So there's in no martial arts tournament would I have lost that guy. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But because he had a weapon, because there was no rules, because I wasn't expecting it, because I assumed compliance, all things we can talk about later, I got stabbed. So that's what put me towards reality-based self-defense. Doing reality-based self-defense, so I went to the Philippines. I trained for 2 months with a bunch of Filipino masters. I do mostly FMA now, FMA boxing and some BJJ, because you got to do BJJ now. You have to. So did all of those things, and then started the gym in 2005. And then the natural evolution that got me to here now is the people that were coming to train at the gym, because we promoted it as self-defense. We didn't promote it as martial arts. The people that were coming to the gym, there were kind of two buckets of people. If you follow me on social media, I talk about this all the time. There's two separate buckets. There's what I call preventative clients, people that don't want bad things to happen. And then what I call curative clients, something that bad already did happen. They don't want that thing to happen again. I'm a very open person. I don't really have a lot of secrets. I'm overshare guy. So a lot of the curative clients really latched to me because I was sharing my story. Like, here's how I lost. I almost died. These are things that happened to me when I was bouncing, because I have way more memorable stories where I lost than when I won. So anyways, that started getting me more into the soft skills side of things, which kind of brought me to where I am now, which is, in a lot of situations, the self-defense, in my opinion, that's taught out there is mostly taught for young men 18 to 26. And other than that, it's I'm not going to say useless. I'm going to say it should be the last resort, right? So most of the industry is aimed at, don't get in a bar fight, don't let the guy road rage you, don't do this, right? But I was working with a lot of women, a lot of people with special needs, a lot of people from disenfranchised economies, social areas. I was working with the First Nations, Métis, Inuit. And the context changed for me. It went from like how to be a cool bouncer, like Randy was a cool bouncer, to how can I actually give these people skills in a 3-hour seminar or a 2-day seminar that will actually do something. Like learning how to throw a palm heel strike is good and all, but learning how to look for a threat and read body language or set a good boundary so people don't violate that, I feel is more important. And if you look at the data on it, 70% of violence that happens to people is done by somebody they know. So just like you can't just throat pop your preacher if they're trying to, like harass you because of the social context, what's going to happen next. So most of my work has now moved onto that side of things, looking at creating strong social circles, creating strong boundaries, learning how to communicate, other kinds of stuff like that. And that brings us to today.
Nice. So do you have any, because it seems to be that happens a lot, right? Where, we're told as we took martial arts when we were younger that, this is how you defend yourself. And I remember, coming up, I did karate, and I remember some ridiculous self-defenses and just looking at the instructor going, I can't do that. Right. Like this is ridiculous. Yeah. If you outweigh the other person by 150 pounds, you can do it. Right. But not me. Right. Why do you think there's that disconnect with reality. It's like, don't they know that that's not going to work? It's what's going on there?
I honestly think so. Like, it totally depends on the coach, right? And all this stuff is so coach dependent that it makes the system more or less effective. But I think overarching wise, people are just teaching what they were taught, right? They didn't understand. Like, there's a lot of context with a lot of things that the stuff you're learning in karate, the stuff you're learning in taekwondo, well, maybe not taekwondo, the stuff you're learning in karate, the stuff you're learning in some of the older systems, because taekwondo is that older system, it made sense to the context of the environment they were in, right? The technology level, what they were allowed to access as weapons, who they were fighting in the environment, all those things kind of bubble together to make a system, in my opinion. And so if you look at, let's say we look at the knife defense for most martial arts, it's like this huge lunging stab, right? And then you do your crazy block and you get to the side. That doesn't make sense in the world we live in wearing these clothes. But if I'm a farmer fighting a guy in armor, I have to lunge to try and pierce through that armor, right? So the context of the attacks aren't being updated. They're not looking at it in a way that's going to adapt. And honestly, sometimes that's okay. I'm big on models and like classifications. You're going to see this real quick. 2 areas I like to put them into. I call arts like that time capsule arts. They're just about keeping the culture, system, heritage together. They're not really good at the fighting part of this, but I don't think that's what they're for. I think they're for assertiveness training, getting in shape, getting flexible. Time capsule arts are good at every part of human existence except the fighting part, which is funny. You learn how to public speak. You learn how to perform in front of a group. There's lots of skills here. Kids can get a lot of benefit from it. Then there's pressure tested arts. And there's some karate schools that pressure test or some whatever, right? So I don't want to lump them traditional, whatever. Pressure tested arts are the ones that are looking at the environment we're in. And we live in this time where you have unlimited access to like video. When I was coming up building the first KPC system, the progressive system that we teach, I didn't have unlimited CCTV video of watching how people fight, right? Like we have a lot more data on that. So I think the issue with it is that they're just doing what they're taught, right? This is how I learned. This is what works. I've already built into it. Could be sunk cost fallacy. Could be, I've done this for 20 years, so I'm not going to change it. I've run into that a couple times. And I don't think it's malice. I just think that the people are just doing what they did because that's the way they did it. And they're not thinking about it again, right? Like the example I use is tying your shoes. Most of us learn how to tie our shoes once, and then you never revisit how to tie your shoes better because this does what you need it to do. But there are so many better ways to tie your shoe than like bunny, loop, whatever you teach kids, right? There's better knots, there's better ways to do it. But once you have that put aside, if you're going to teach somebody something and you're not looking at it because you live in a world where you're not running into violence, right? A lot of instructors live in like, to make your school successful, you kind of want to be in a richer neighborhood. Yeah. So the snapshots you're getting of reality are, I have a car alarm, I live in a building, I can take safe transit, right? So if these things aren't popping up, it's very hard to realize that's happening. That was happened to me when I started working. So like I have a very diverse group of people I work with. Like literally last weekend, I worked with a bunch of partners from a law firm doing boundary setting. And then I was on a First Nations reserve, which is a much different culture. Okay. Right. So in the CEOs, I'm like, oh, I've been stabbed, blah, blah, blah. Cause I obviously casually drop that all the time. I've been stabbed. And they're like, oh, that's crazy. When I'm on the First Nations reserve, they're like, how many times? And then we start sharing stabbing stories. Right. So it's just understanding that there is it just drives me crazy. There is no expert in this field because we all have a sliver of what violence looks like. My sliver of experiential stuff, not research, but what I did was social violence in a bar setting. I am very good at dealing with that. Then through research, I can add on to it, but I still only have this much of the entire picture, right? I have a piece of the pie. If a person of color, transgendered person comes and talks to me about violence, I'm not gonna know what they're going through. I'm just not, right? So understanding that. So I think super long answer to a very small question. I think that the teachers, because they're not getting the sample sizes, they don't see need to change.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. So how did you end up doing the traveling thing, and like how did you fall into that, like going from the bar to your studio to traveling?
Great question. So I've been pretty lucky with connection points. I'm a pretty friendly guy. I am who I am right now is who I am. The best, most backhanded compliment I ever got was from a guy named Rory Miller. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Rory.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rory is like my mentor. We did a tour together a couple months ago. We were in the US for 11 stops. We did a co-headlining tour. His compliment to me is my favorite one, which is, you're the only person with your personality type that I like. Because I'm very like, hey, I'm Randy. And I come up very like salesy, which is what I did for a while. But unfortunately, this is authentically me. So I am very good at networking. And so how it started was, this is the only career, my joke, it's the only career that you can make a lifetime of bad decisions and then become successful from that. So because I have the stories that deal with like real violence, like I've been in whatever, who cares, amount of fights, but a lot full-time at a bar during oil booms. I've seen a lot of real violence shot at. I've been dragged by a car. I got hit by a shovel. There's a bunch of craziness that happened. The vibe, the trauma vampires, the people that like that kind of stuff, obviously were the first echelon that moved me up, right? Oh, Randy's seen this, he's done this. So that was what happened. And it honestly kind of started with a goal of, I wanted to be a touring instructor. I wanted to travel and meet new people and learn new things. So the first one I did, I funded myself, and I called it the Randy's Rant was my first YouTube thing I did. It's on YouTube. You can check it out. They're pretty old. I'm much younger, obviously, in it. But it's me just bitching and way less neutral than I am right now about it. Very like, this is stupid. You're dumb if you think this. Those kind of started my journey to getting more known. Then I did Randy's Rant Rockstar Tour, where we got in my SUV and we drove across northern Canada and across the northern states. And I did like 8 dates, and that started building me up. And then I went to conferences. I do a conference every year called Violence Dynamics with myself. I'm one of the headliners now. I wasn't when it started. Rory Miller, Tammy Yard McCracken, and Casey Keckeisen. Casey's a SWAT officer. Tammy's a Krav person who's also a psychologist. And then Rory and myself. That also helped get me other dates because people would fly into that and then ask if I did separate seminars. Okay. So that got my first date in Scotland. And then from there, getting to the European market is easier than it is to get into the market here because of we call it backyard bias. But martial arts has like this ingrained thought process that if something is good, it has to come from somewhere else. Right? Yeah. So you can't be a prophet in your own land is another way to say it, right? But like, okay, so you do Krav Maga, that's from Israel. Ooh, right? Even though a kick is a kick, a punch is a punch, an elbow is an elbow, it's Israeli elbows. So that's crazy. So once I got like semi-known in the European market because I was from Canada, ooh, he's from somewhere else, right? So that kind of backyard mysticism really helped me. And then just delivering a good service, right? So I've been to Scotland 6 times now because people want the updates, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of how it started, was just going for it, making it a goal and crushing it, right? Doing the first one, literally the first tour I did, it was me and my girlfriend at the time, not the current girlfriend, and I guess fiance. Ooh. And
don't get that wrong.
I should not. She doesn't listen to any of this stuff. So, we literally just went like for gas money, pretty much. I'm like, I'll teach. If we make enough money to eat, let us stay on a couch. And that was like, but once people saw that, like, oh, this guy travels. Because of course I'm not on the social media being like, I made $8. Like, I'm not going to say that. All they see is, oh, Randy did 8 different dates. Maybe he'll come here. And that kind of moved that forward.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And how long have you been doing the on tour stuff?
2006 years, I would say, minus obviously the COVID years. Like COVID was everybody has their COVID bitch story. Yeah. I had a fully sold out tour January 2020. I had a fully sold out tour. I had we had a house fire in November. I lost everything. Oh, wow. Then we replaced it. I finally got all my debts paid off. I was at zero as a martial arts instructor, no debts. I was like, this is the best. And then COVID hit, but I had a fully sold out tour. So hopefully it comes back. But I think, 5 years of touring, but like full time 3. I would
Okay.
say from 2016 was when I really hit it. So I guess 4 technically because 2020.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when I did the most of it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's like the COVID years are like the hole in everybody's calendar. It's like
The lost year.
the hole in your resume. It's like, oh, you have nothing between 2020 and 2022. What's going on?
Exactly.
Well, there was this crazy thing called the pandemic. The So, what are your plans, assuming that the revolution happens here in Canada and we oust the government and get back to normal?
Right.
Where do you want to take things from here?
I want to get back. So with the new, so 80/20 is the new brand. We started it during the pandemic, looking at, because like I'm a full-time instructor. I don't have a day job. This is all I do is
Mhm.
this. So obviously, if my job was traveling and being in physical interaction with people, my feet got swept out from under me with the restrictions, right?
Yeah.
So I had to pivot. So the first thing I did was I offered a bunch of free courses to instructors who maybe aren't as technologically savvy. So I'm pretty good. I have like obviously like the lights and the background and the cameras, and I do a podcast like everybody does, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty tech savvy. So I offered out to instructors, I'm like, I will do a free course for your students to give you 1 day off so you can figure out your strategy, right? Because the pandemic was crazy. And this is back, we thought it'd be like 2 weeks or whatever, a month, 3 months,
Yeah.
whatever lies they told us. And so, so that's what I did first. And so I used that to be like, cool. So eventually when I did like 40 of them, I think. And then so after that, it was always in the number one to help people, because if you're in service to other people, your business is going to get better almost all the time. But number two is to keep connections, right? So, hey, can we work together? Can we do this? Can we do these other seminars? Here's what I'm working on. So right now, the future is I would love to go back to touring. We're doing another Rand Rory seminar. So me and Rory Miller again. We're doing one in the UK and one in Europe. Both are planned ideally as soon as restrictions lift, and looking at like Spain just lifted restrictions, the UK just lifted restrictions. So it looks like, I think that's the dominoes will make everybody else fall eventually. It should be done here soonish. I'm hoping 6 months, but who knows? Anyway, so that's the plan, is to get back on the road. I have tentative dates in the Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Germany, and France. So tentative dates there. But right now, the goal is corporate training, because that's easy to deliver online, and training through Canadian dates, right? So like I have a friend in, what is the name of the city? It's Ontario. The state, London, Ontario.
Okay.
So I have a friend in London, Ontario, who I go to, has been one of my biggest supporters, who I go train with. Looking to get those dates. I have a friend in Cranbrook. So I'm thinking for now, I'm going to stay Canada for seminars. But yeah, and then just developing. I'm working on a book, and I'm working on like the social media, podcasts, presentations, etc. Always, I'm a huge research nerd. I'm always looking at new things to add to this, to make it more accessible to other people. Like example, on my social media right now, we have a question up. Not the one with my daughter that you met me on, my actual like the regular social media. And I have a boundary setting course that we put boundaries into 6 categories. But people keep asking me about a 7th category. And so it's a spiritual boundary. I am not a religious person, so I've never considered that a boundary pillar. So right now we're having a conversation online, not right now, after this, is spiritual boundary different than these other boundaries? And I'm always trying to expand the definitions to make it as encompassing as possible without watering it down too much, right? So when I'm delivering material, because I work with people who have trauma, who have been through bad things, you need to talk them kind of at the level they're at, right? So if you come in too hard, you're going to lose them. And these might be the people that need to train the most. So that's kind of the plans, is get back on the road as fast as possible, because I miss it. Work on these online development courses. I have a couple online courses as well. And then get to getting to people that need this as quick as possible, and delivering it in a way that creates the least amount of friction on delivery of the product.
Nice. Yeah, London's not too far away from me, so let me know when you're there.
Okay, sounds good. I will.
Yeah. I'm literally like maybe depending where in London, but about 45 minutes to an hour away.
Wow, that's
So,
crazy. Okay, cool.
yeah.
We'll definitely stay in touch after this.
Yeah, there we go. So let's talk about because you've got your social media stuff going, and where I originally saw you was on TikTok, right?
Right.
And I was scrolling through, and I've seen other people on there and doing it, but it was an interesting concept that you had there with the kind of. It's almost like it's your daughter's TikTok, and then she has you as a guest, right?
Exactly
So
right.
how did that come about?
So honestly, everybody's talking about TikTok, right? And
Yeah.
that's the pandemic hit, and I'm at that. So I'm 41. I'm at that special age that nobody cares about what I want to say on TikTok, right? So I'm not young enough to be cool, and I'm not old enough that it's cute that I'm trying, right? So I'm in that like weird middle bubble of whatever. I have a friend on there whose name is Instructor Bense. He's a good friend of mine. He has 1 million followers. And he's like, Randy, you need to be on TikTok. I'll duet. We'll do this. I'm like, I don't know. What am I?
I don't.
Nobody's pardon.
I don't
Nobody's
know
gonna
what
watch my
I
video.
don't know. I don't know what that is.
Exactly. I don't want to be doing although I would say I don't want to be doing dance. I'm literally doing dance on this damn thing now. It's super fun and makes me very creative. So that's the concept came up was me and my daughter were talking, and me and my kid are very close. And so I was like, well, what if we did this thing where like you run the TikTok, you ask questions, and then I just answer them because now it's like a person who should be using TikTok, right? And then asking this old dude questions. And it was kind of like just like a fun idea we came up with, and we really decided to run with it. So the channel started 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Oh wow! So I caught you right at the beginning then.
Literally, it was hilarious. I messaged her. I'm like, man, this TikTok thing works. Some guy booked me for a podcast already. It's been like a week. Yeah, you were like honestly one of the first people to even communicate with us. And it's been an awesome learning experience in a couple of ways. Number one, learning the TikTok in general. So I've changed my saying. There's an old saying Albert Einstein is accredited to, which is if you can't teach a 5-year-old what you do, you don't know what you do, right?
Right.
I'm amending it to if you can't teach what you do on TikTok, you can't teach what you do. So if you can't break that down to a minute and make it simple for people to take in, I not a challenge to anybody. I'm not trying to piss anybody off, but that's the metric I'm personally using, right? So, 1-word videos and like whatever. It's been really cool the feedback we're getting. And it's also very interesting because this is also like kind of a parenting meta win because my daughter's grown up in a gym her whole life, right? Like she bullied big, huge dude. She's always like, she's very confident. She doesn't need a lot of the self-defense stuff that I would teach other people because of how she came up. So she's bored of it, right? She grew up with there, right? Like it's like a kid of a rock star doesn't care about rock music usually because like whatever, that's just what I do. This has been really cool because she edits the videos and posts them. So she has to listen to the information. So I'm like subtly getting the self-defense info into her head. But yeah, so that's how it started was just like, this would be a fun activity for us to do. I think TikTok is a great platform. It's marketing wise, I think the only place you can go viral anymore. Instagram's very hard to get any traction on. YouTube's almost impossible to get traction on. But TikTok, people are blowing up all the time. So it's a great way to get new people invested. And especially if you're looking at the next generation of people like Gen Z, Gen Z's all over that. So if you can get the information in their heads in a way they like, that 7-second to 1-minute video, less friction for the brain, I think there's a huge benefit to it. So yeah, it just started off as like a dumb idea because my friend's like, you should join TikTok. I'm like, nobody cares about me. But my kid's like, I can do it. I'm like, that's awesome. Also, I don't have to run it. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's not extra work for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I find that the platform is maturing because back when it first started, it was just like you said, people doing dances. But now you have historians, you have astronomers, you have like all these people imparting their knowledge in, like you said, bite-size segments, right? So it's definitely cool. Yeah, it definitely is. How old is your daughter actually?
She is 13.
13. She's gonna take over the family business.
You know what? I don't know. Maybe. You're a martial arts guy, right? I don't know if I want her doing this. It's real stressful. I have way too much gray in my beard, right? So when it's good, it's good. When it's hard, it's hard. I don't know. She That would be great. Of course, I would love
Mhm.
that. Um,
Well,
I'm not sure.
especially because there's not that many females.
No, there's more coming. Like it's
Yeah.
getting bigger and better, and like we're getting a lot of different instructors. Uh, but you're right, there isn't that many, and there isn't that many good coaches in general. Like there's, in my
Yeah.
opinion, let alone when it comes to like any kind of not ex bouncer military cop white dude,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
the biggest chunk of the market. Now, the biggest names in the industry are all very similar looking to me, right? I think there'll be a big transition in that. A lot more stories are being told. There's a lot more change, but it's still very predominantly one demographic that's doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be nice to see the diversity,
Agreed.
and because having big time high level female instructors would definitely give us a different perspective that we just can't have, right?
Exactly. I think right now for your listeners, this I have zero connection to. I have one connection, but Pamela Armitage is really good, and so is Tammy Yard McCracken. Those two are killing it when it comes to self defense with women. So, like, if you're looking for other opinions, Tammy's like my fact check person. I'll be like, "Is this right?" And then she'll be like, "Yes," or "No, stupid giant dude. That is not how this works." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Right. So
Nice. Well, at least they're honest, but
true. True.
all right. Um, so typically, though, when you're on tour and you're teaching, what is the market that you're teaching to? Like, are you teaching instructors information so that they can disseminate it, or are you actually teaching, um, students, like new people coming in to the self defense?
So the answer is both, but like lion's share, I would say I'm being brought in by a coach to
Mm-hmm.
teach their students. So I do like a the coaching session. I have a Patreon where we do that. But I my so I'm big on like market and position. So what market am I going to? What's my position in that market? I'm really big on that when I'm building stuff. So my position that I want to be in the self-defense market is I want to be the gateway drug to training. So I want to come in and teach like a 6-hour course. These are the things you need to know. Like this is how attacks happen. This is social versus asocial violence. These are the de-escalations. This is what you should do. Here's your counter assault. And then go train somewhere else, right? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
ideally my program, what I want is I want people to come to my whatever 3-day seminar. And then after that, they can take literally any other martial art they want because they can apply the lens of self-defense to it, right? So I mentioned earlier, I do BJJ. A lot of BJJ stuff is not good for the street. It's just not. It's competition. It's whatever, right? If you look at combat jujitsu with Eddie Bravo, as soon as you start adding even a slap, the techniques go from like De La Riva guard to, oh God, basic guard, basic punch protection, white belt stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so my goal with the book, with all the stuff I'm doing is this is the picture. This is the reality of violence. These are the things you need to know. And then after that, a choke, a kick is a kick, a punch is a punch. It doesn't matter what you do. My goal is to future-proof people from being taken by cult of personality, by people who are like lying to them, right? Because I fell for that a bunch of times. Remember, no internet, right? So my goal is gateway drug. I'm going to come to you and be like, I do this, this, and this. And then I will bump you somewhere else, right? So once you get to a certain level with me, and the way I like to say it is, if you do self-defense long enough, it eventually becomes martial arts, right? So once you've dealt with the 90%, or once you've dealt with like, these are the most common things, then you're going to be like, but what's a spin kick like, right? You're going to ask those questions because you have the basics down. That's where it goes to martial arts. So I kind of want them in that indoctrinatory phase of self-defense to make sure they have a really solid understanding of what to look for, red flags and coaches, how violence works, that kind of stuff, and then send them on their way. I have a feed here in Edmonton. There's an MMA gym. If they get a client in that is not emotionally ready for the environment of MMA, they'll send them to me first for like a couple of sessions. And I'll get them like, hey, this is what you need to do, blah, 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 blah. Here's the emotional fear management, yada, yada, yada. Then they'll go and train at the other gym. So that's my goal. My goal is to be the gateway drug. So when I do go and teach, I'm usually teaching the students. when I am teaching coaches, I'm teaching like, and this is going to sound like super left wing, so feel free to hit me, but I'm teaching like trauma aware training, how to create a safe space for people that have gone through things, right? Because you might say something incorrectly, and I honestly have to believe that most people who teach martial arts, you're not in it for the money. None of us are like, woo. There's a couple people killing it, but not most of us.
Yeah.
We're in it for the love of the arts. We're in it to make people better and stronger, right? So I would hate that by a slip of the tongue, you lose a client that potentially you could have been the only person that could have helped. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I am coaching coaches, as we talk about like after class debriefs and how to set up the space and, what you say at the beginning of time and how to deal with things and how your policy should be transparent and all those kind of things to ensure a emotionally safe place to do physically dangerous things.
Nice. And is that the focus of the book that you're working on?
It is. The book I'm working on right now is so everybody wants me to write everybody, the people that talk to me. Let me calm down a little bit. Everybody, the world demands Randy. The people that I talk to, they want a book because my view on this is a little bit different than a lot of the main proponents of self-defense. I have a little bit of a different view. But like honestly, like Rory killed it with some books, like Larkin's book's really good. There's a lot of really good material out there. So I wanted to find a place that wasn't just like putting 2022 words on 19 or 2005 thoughts, right? So the book I'm writing right now and the working title is Not Everybody Starts at Zero, which is understanding that somebody walks into your class, they might walk in a former Division I wrestler, or they might walk in just leaving an abusive relationship, right? So when we start, because most programs have a beginning and an end, right? And we assume that everybody's kind of starting from the same place. But maybe they joined for a lark, or maybe they deleted 18 emails they were going to send you, and one day they finally worked up the courage to take the course. The point of the book is to give coaches and students the understanding of how that looks, right? So I had a student, he's now like all abs and Captain CrossFit and amazing. When he first came in, he was like 6'1" and 120 pounds. He was like sticks. And he told me eventually that he used to have panic attacks when he come to the gym every day. He'd walk around because he happened to get an induction course that was him and like all military dudes. So he felt really like out of place. And he told me like pace every day, like it's only an hour. It's only an hour, right? So I really want coaches to be aware of this, right? Is a lot of coaches like to pat themselves on the back for the progress they've given people, right? Like, oh, because they came to my course, now they did this and that. And my thought is always, we're just pointing the way up the mountain. They have to climb it, but we don't know how far their journey was to the base of the mountain where we're pointing. So I want people to know, like, this is like the point of the book is it's going to be like a 101 on joining a course, what to look for, what your goals are, what the culture should look like, things you should be paying attention to, because there's still people, like, we read stories all the time of like, and I don't want to pick on BJJ, but it happens a lot in there. BJJ coach does inappropriate things to client in private lesson, right? So just teaching people that kind of stuff. So that's the point of the book is like, you want to take self-defense? You want to take martial arts? That's cool. Here's the things you need to know before you enter that world to make sure you don't get taken advantage of.
Sounds interesting. So when can we expect the book to come out?
I'm hoping September. But so I've already written a book, one on business, one how to promote your business, called Selling Out to Your Level of Comfort, quick promotion. It's on Amazon if you want it. It's like this big. It's not very thick. Bunch of worksheets. That one was easy to write because it was just business, right? I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a business guy. So I wrote it, no problem. This one is harder because I really want this to be good. I have some investment in it, and I really want it to be a good, useful tool. So I'm hoping September. Literally after this, I'm writing all day today. But yeah, hopefully within the next couple of months, it'll be out this year for sure, though.
Oh, cool. We'll have to get you back on when the release date comes. All right. Well, this has been an awesome chat, right? Like, you're a very gregarious guy, right?
Yes, I am.
And I've had lots of fun. So if someone wanted to when things are more open, have you in for a seminar or take one of your training courses, what is the best way to get in contact with you?
Sure. So I'm very easy to access on the internet. I'm pretty much on my phone all the time. So social media is great. If Instagram is where I spend most of my time. So at Randy King Live is where I'm at. That's where I have the most followers, put the most stuff up. You can find me there. You can direct message me there. You can find me on Facebook, Randy King Live Community Group or Randy King Live. TikTok at the Feds Talk Like That. You can find us
Yep.
there. And then course wise, if you want to train me in person, just book me. I have a coming out of the pandemic special right now, so my rate is flexible. It hasn't been flexible in a long time. It used to be like a standard fee, but
Mhm.
now I want to help build the businesses back up. So I have a very flexible rate right now, where if you bring me in, it's like travel costs and then like a split between me and the gym. So both people are making money. I don't need to make a ton of money. I just want to bring everybody back up. You can email me on that. If you want to train me online, I have 2 online courses through Teachable.
Okay.
Reality Violence, which is one of my favorites. It's my favorite course. It's pretty much what the book is going to be, at least the first part of it. What I'm most known for in the space is my research on the freeze and adrenaline
Mhm.
response. So all of that model is in there. I talk my 3-piece freeze model, overwhelmed, detection, and shocked. It's all in there, explaining different things and how it's worked with people that I've worked with. And I also have a reality boundary setting courses on there as well. So feel free to take those. And then I'll
Perfect.
send Paul a discount code for the listeners for both. Hopefully you can attach to the show, and then
Yep.
you guys can take the course, less cost.
Awesome. We'll get that up for you. All right. So I want to thank you for coming on to Krav Life, and you know what? You stay safe and you have yourself a great day.
Thanks, man. You too.